Let's talk about BLM and George Floyd for a second. And I just used George Floyd obviously because, that's the most recent. That's the most recent atrocious crime, by the way, which is exactly what it was. Um, uh, you know, but let's talk about what that means, and let's think about what's going on in the United States as a result of that. You know, basically, if a person in the United States today, right now, says that they support the police and that they don't support the BLM movement, they're automatically profiled, and I use profiling for a reason. They are profiled as racist. Um, so the very group out there in the United States today that loves to claim that racial profiling is the worst thing ever, right? Besides slavery, obviously, are the same group that are profiling half of their countrymen. You know, if I say I support Donald Trump and that I don't support BLM, that doesn't make me a racist. It could very well be that I want the rest of what exists of racism in this country to go away, and that I don't think that the way BLM is going about it is the proper way to do it. And in fact, I'm convinced of that. And I think a lot of people are convinced of that at this point because when you profile a huge group of people, the way the liberal movement is profiling them, it never really works out very well because people with common sense can kind of see through that. I'm not going to go into stats except for one, and because it's the most important when it comes to this deal, right? And that is that black people in the United States make up 13% of the population. Black males make up 6% roughly of that population. And that 6% out of 100 are responsible for over 50% of the murders in the United States. That's not a racial statement or an indictment on a black person. What it is a fact in the United States. And it's not one that I can change. And acting like it doesn't exist doesn't make me holier than thou. And it doesn't even really make me all that intelligent. A fact is a fact. The fact of the matter is that, barring some cataclysm, the sun is going to go down tonight and it's going to come back up tomorrow. That's a fact. If you want to make that a statement that's not okay to say and put racial meaning on that, what it is a benign fact, okay? So that is the fact. So let's talk about what BLM means. I support the motto, Black Lives Matter. George Floyd's life matters. And I'm never going to be okay with cops mistreating any person in the United States. I don't even agree with it when I see it overseas, and neither should you. What I don't agree with is a movement that calls itself Black Lives Matter with a .org on the end of it, by the way, who are making claims and statements that are absolutely 100% disproven by the facts. If you're a cop in the United States and you want to bust murderers, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the places where 50% of those crimes are taking place. If you've got this huge area to cover, right, across the United States, or even in your city, right, and you want to get the most bang for your buck as a police officer or a detective, or however you want to put it, are you going to go to the area where the other 50% is spread over a much wider area? Or are you going to go focus on the area where you know that you can make the most impact, the most arrest, and the biggest dent in that crime rate? That's not profiling, man. That's smart policing. That's not to say that profiling doesn't exist. And that's not to say that bad cops don't exist. Once again, cops need to be held accountable when they do things like what happened to George Floyd. But the fact of the matter is that it's not a pandemic, right? It's not an epidemic across the United States. It happens. And when it happens, it needs to be noticed, it needs to be dealt with, and those police officers need to face the consequences that they get. But to take 9 to 20 murders, right, and we'll call them murders across the United States by cops perpetrated on black individuals does not equal a sweeping problem across the United States. It just doesn't. So what are you trying to do? You're ignoring the forest for the tree. If you want to make an impact on saving black lives, you need to be focused on the same thing the cops are focused on, and why it is that 50% of murders in this United States are being perpetrated by that particular group. That's how you do it, man. That doesn't mean that you quit paying attention to things like the George Floyd incident. It just means that they're not the top of the list things to be focused on. And pretending like that they are is not doing that group any justice. In fact, Black Lives Matter, I feel 100% confident, will go down in history as one of the most harmful things to Black America ever. Because if I build a movement on the back of a bunch of lies and manipulated stats, eventually most people are going to figure that out. And if they don't, they're going to be presented with that enough times until they finally realize, wait a minute, man, the stats are the stats, right? And hopefully they'll go look them up, right? Which you can look up on FBI.gov easily and many other sites. It's not the only group. If you don't trust the FBI, right? But just look it up besides just listening to what BLM says about it, because it's easy to say more black people are killed by cops, right, when you look at it by population percentage. But when you look at it by percentage of crime, the differences equal each other. 5%, 5% or higher more likely to commit a felony equals 5%, or 5 times, 5 times more likely to commit a felony or violent crime is going to eventually equal 5 times the amount of encounters with cops. That's it. And so per stop, right, per equal number of stops in the United States, black people are actually at the very bottom of the rung, right, in percentages of being killed or mistreated by cops. Those are the facts. I didn't make them. If they weren't facts and I was saying them, then I'd be a racist, I think. And I think that would be a true statement if that was the case. But it's not the case. The facts are the facts. And we can't afford to pretend like that we don't know those facts exist and send this whole country into a tailspin over something that's just not right, man. And it is what it is. All black lives matter. All black lives matter. Black lives matter. And all lives matter. And George Floyd's matter big time. They do. They matter big time. I'm not okay with it. And I don't think most people are. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to turn that into something that it's not. The biggest issues facing the black community today are fatherless households and the crime rate. That's it. And to a large degree, white people, right, and the rest of the people in the United States can do lots of things to help with that. And that's a whole nother discussion, right? There's some culpability on both sides of that. At this point, it doesn't matter. We all need to come together to change it instead of focusing on something that's a problem but is not the problem. Thanks.